I have a message in our series, Honor Code, titled No Regrets. No regrets. You know, many times we make decisions in life, we make choices that we, grow to regret. And one time, my dad and we were going on a deep sea fishing trip, and we were going on this boat called the Reveille. And it's probably like an 80-some foot boat, and we were going on this deep sea fishing trip. So we're leaving San Bernardino, and I had this really great, bright idea that I was going to stop at Baker's, and I was going to get me this big vanilla shake, okay? If you've ever had a vanilla shake from there, come on, man, I'm going to promote them a little bit, man. That stuff is fire, okay? So I get this shake, and we're driving down. I'm just guzzling this thing down, having a happy old good time. Well, we get down to the harbor, down at Dana Point. We get over there. We're leaving about 11 p.m. at night, so it's going to be, a little night trip, and we wake up early in the morning, and we're going to do some fishing. Well, I started not feeling so good on the way down there after drinking the shake. We weren't even on the boat yet, and finally we make our way onto it, and we're leaving the safety of the harbor, and we're heading out, and I'm not feeling so good, and that shake's really saying, it doesn't want to stay in my stomach. And so I'm trying to hold it down, and this is what the captain says to us right as we're leaving the harbor. He says, "Hey, boys," he said, "it's going to be a really rough one out there tonight." And he said, "We have a really bad storm that's blowing in, but," he said, "so this is what I need you to do is stay down below in the bunks, and if you have to get up to use the restroom, you got to let somebody know that you left just in case you go overboard." I'm like, wait a minute, like what's going on here? So we're about an hour into this little boat. I mean, come on, an 80-some foot boat doesn't sound real small to us, but it is in the ocean. So we're just getting blasted out there. I mean, this boat's getting thrown all over the place. We're down in the bottom. And I mean, I'm doing everything I can to hold this shake down. And finally, I can't take it anymore. And so I tell somebody, "Hey, I'm going to go up to the side." And I was going to start chumming, And, but as I stepped out onto the deck, it was really a terrifying experience. The boat is getting pitched really hard to the left and to the right, and you can barely stand. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that I'm going to go next to that rail. There's no way I'm going over. And it's so dark out there. The only lights I could see were just the lights on the boat itself. And so I start making my way, and I finally made it to the restroom and did what I had to do. But my whole point in this is that sometimes we make really small decisions, okay? I made a $3.50 decision, okay, that affected a very expensive trip. And I want to talk to you today about the regrets of the decisions that we make. And often I think that we make decisions, but we don't slow down enough to say, "God, is what I'm about to say, is what I'm about to do, is about where I'm about to go. God, does this honor you? Does this honor you?" See, today I want to talk to you about honoring God and understanding that your choices, my choices, have significant impact on how we live our lives. And that this life that we live in, that you're going to experience pain. You're going to experience pain based on the choices that you make. Welcome to Hub City, where you always get a life-giving message. You're like, "Hey, you went there, you said, we're going to have pain." But here's the thing, according to the little green theologian Yoda, I want you to see this real quick. If I can get my slide, I'm going to jump forward just a little bit. But Yoda had this saying, and he said this. He says, "Each day, choose you must," I should do it in his voice, huh? "The pain of discipline or the pain of regret." Each day, choose you must, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. In this lifetime, you and I are going to experience pain. It's not always going to be easy. We're not always going to have a great week. The checking account is not always going to be full. You're not always going to feel strength in your body. Sometimes you're going to feel worn out and you're going to feel tired. But listen, the one thing that is consistent in life that you will have to do every single day is you will be faced with choices. And this is a great choice that you and I will be faced with, is that will we accept the pain of discipline to honor God, or will we accept the pain of regret and dishonoring and walking in disobedience? See, in 1 Corinthians, if I can go back to that verse, thank you guys are doing great. 1 Corinthians 6:20, this verse really hit me. It says, "For you were bought at a price." Turn to your neighbor and say, "You were bought at a price." That price was the blood of Jesus. That was God giving you and I his best. So you were bought at a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are whose? They're God's. And so what we do with our body and what we do with our spirit, it matters because it really is the choice of honor and dishonor before the Lord. And so today I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk about the pain of discipline or living with the pain of regret. And most of us, we hate to feel the pain of discipline. We avoid it at all costs. Listen to what it says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. It says, no discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful, is it not? It says, but afterwards there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. I encourage you to commit this verse to memory. You know, that many times we avoid discipline because it's not enjoyable, because our flesh is always looking to be satisfied and to be comforted. So when you think about discipline, when you think about waiting for something, when you think about making a choice that honors God instead of just feels good in the moment, it's painful to do that. It's painful. Some of you get this anxiety that comes over you because it's like, I want to do it, but I know I shouldn't. And there becomes this tension and this struggle on the inside of you. But it's saying here, and I love this, afterwards there will be a peaceful harvest of right living. Other translations will say a peaceful harvest of righteousness. And I just love this, guys, because what God is saying is that although you receive the pain of discipline, there's an exchange for something amazing. And so it's not something that we should avoid. I want you to see what the definition of discipline is. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. You might want to write that down or snap a picture of this. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And many of us, we fall into the trap of pursuing what we want now instead of what we want most. And we fail to reap that harvest in our lives. We fail to receive God's best. There's a little story in Genesis chapter 25. We'll go there to verse 29 through 34. And there's Jacob and Esau, these two brothers. Jacob is the younger brother who doesn't have the birthright, but he's pretty deceptive, and he wants to trick his older brother. His older brother Esau was more of a hunter, gamer type guy, and he's out in the fields, and he's trying to do his thing, and he's just starving. And here we pick up this story. And once again, let me remind you, what we're talking about is discipline, right? Is waiting for what you want most and foregoing what you want now. Listen to this. It says, one day when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau arrives home from the wilderness exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. Next slide. All right, Jacob replied, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. Wow, talk about an exchange. Look, I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright now? But Jacob said, first you must swear that your birthright is mine. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all of his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. Listen to this. He showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. Do you guys know what contempt is? Contempt is disrespect. Contempt is dishonoring the judge in a courthouse or the court itself. And what he's saying is right here is what Scripture is telling us is that the main issue with Esau is that he dishonored God because God was the one that established the birthright. It was God's idea that the firstborn would have the bigger portion of the birthright. But here Esau showed contempt. He showed dishonor and disrespect towards God. And how did that happen? Is that he pursued what he wanted now instead of what he really wanted most. Because you see in this story as it continues, and we're not going to read that for the sake of time, that Esau regretted the decision that he made, that he wanted that birthright back. And he went to his dad, and he did everything he could to try to make it right when he came to his senses and after having his belly full and realizing that he wasn't going to die. And how many of us make those kind of decisions? How many of us on the daily basis, we choose what we want now instead of what we want most? That we pursue the wrong things, that we're consistently being driven and motivated by our flesh and motivated by the moment. And trading in our future, trading in what God has placed in your life. Do you realize that when we make those wrong choices and we don't account for those things, when we don't go to the Lord and say, God, is this your best? Do you realize that we ourselves are having contempt for the plan that God has in our life, that we're disrespecting and dishonoring Him? Man, it's a pretty deep thought, isn't it? And this is not something that you should walk around with shame and weight and guilt now. It's just realizing the importance of the decisions that you're making. What is the motivator? Is it the Spirit of God that is burning on the inside of you, that is giving you cues and that's giving you direction? Or are we just simply being driven by this thing called the flesh? It's big questions that we need to ask ourselves. You know, something was floating around on the internet, and I just love this. And it talked about choosing your hard, because discipline is hard. It's about choosing your hard. Let me read this to you. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard. Being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. My question to you today is, are you going to choose discipline or are you going to choose regret? Choose your hard, church. See, most of us in this place, we want to be physically fit. That's what we want most. Some of us, we look in the mirror and maybe we feel shame about our bodies and we tell ourselves, I'm going to start over tomorrow. I'm going to start over tomorrow. You know, tomorrow's my day. You know, I'm going to eat these bad meals today and tomorrow's my day. And so what you want most is that physical, you want to be healthy in your body. But then consistently you might say to yourself, and I've said this to myself so many times, can't believe I ate the whole thing. Right? So what was my choice? I chose regret instead of discipline. Maybe you want to be sober most. Maybe you want your sobriety most. But you took that one drink and you just couldn't stop. And I drank the whole thing. So you chose what you wanted now versus what you wanted most. Is this making sense to you, church? You want sexual purity most. We were only flirting a little bit. Next thing we knew, we went all the way. You chose what you wanted now instead of what you wanted most. You want freedom from debt. I was shopping and I just couldn't stop buying. I just couldn't help myself. It just took me over. You chose what you wanted now instead of what you wanted most. I hope this is becoming clearer to you today. And see, discipline is a key part of a disciple's life. Discipline is in the name of disciple. And Paul talks about this. If you would, go with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25 through 26. Pretty familiar passage. But when it comes to discipline, I'm going to start talking a little bit about how do we transition into this and making it a way of our life. He says, all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So what he's saying is there's a challenge that's being put out to you and I, that when we live a disciplined life before the Lord, that really what we're going after is a eternal prize, one that won't fade away. And so he continues and he says, so I will run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. Man, I love that thought. What he's saying is that I am living a life where it's not just mere words, but I'm truly living a disciplined life. That I am one that is seeking God with my whole heart. That I'm not just shadow boxing. Do you realize, like, that's kind of funny? It's a funny concept. Because what he's saying is, have you ever seen a fighter? They're punching, they're just beating at the air. They're, uppercuts. They're working on their training for the fight. But what he's saying is, like, I'm taking it further. I'm actually going to really fight. I'm not just a shadow boxer. And often, many of us, that's the way we live our lives, is that truly We are not taking steps with purpose. We're taking steps with whatever we feel like in that morning. It's like, oh, I'll just start tomorrow. Yeah, and you're just kind of flowing in and out with the tide of life. And it's just consuming you and taking you over. We got and I'm going to say the big C church. The reason that the church has been ineffective for the most part in preaching the gospel is because most people know that we're not really fighting. They know that for the most part, the church as a whole are a bunch of shadow boxers. That we know scriptures and we spurt out scriptures. They know that we know the songs. We know to come in at the right moment. When the song gets big, we raise our hand. We know to do church. But do we really know how to be followers of Jesus Christ? Do we really know what it means to be a disciple of him? To not chase our feelings and our emotions, but to truly lock down and live a disciplined life. It's not a life that you're living to just punish yourself. Many go on into that stuff. That becomes religion, where they're beating themselves on the back with sticks and stuff, trying to prove their worth to God. You don't need to prove your worth to God. Jesus paid the price. But there is a part where Jesus has said, you take up your cross daily and you follow me. That takes discipline. It takes discipline to pick that thing up when you don't feel like picking it up. It takes discipline to walk a path that he's calling you to, that maybe you're afraid to walk. Maybe it just doesn't look as interesting as the path over here. That's a much more scenic view over here than the one that he's calling you to. But yet you pick it up and you're faithful to it and you walk it. Man, I know this thing is hitting some of you guys. I know it was hitting me as I was preparing last night, realizing that we have been called to a life of discipline. And listen, you will experience the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Are you guys getting something out of this today? So my question to you, church, is what do you want most? What do you want most? I'm actually going to stop just for about 10 to 15 seconds here. If you're taking notes right now, I want you to take just a moment before the Lord. Close your eyes right now. God, we want to know what is your best for us. And show us in this moment, God, what we need most. What needs to change in our life most right now? Write that down. Take out your phone. Type it in. What is that you want most? Do you want your health back? Do you want your finances in order? Do you want a healthy home? Do you want to draw closer to Jesus than you've ever been? Do you want to get that business off the ground? What is it that you want most right now that is going to take discipline? The pain of discipline. What is it? Because if you can't identify it, it's going to be really hard because you're walking with no target. What is it that you want most today, church? What is it that's going to compel you and move you past the life of shadow boxing? What is it that's going to take you to a place of getting serious about your faith, getting serious about all these aspects in our lives? So I want to talk to you right now about honoring God by choosing discipline over regret. It's real simple. I got 1 point for you today. How do you guys like those 1 point messages? They're like, yes, man. When Pastor goes 5 points, man, it's like we're going to be late to In and Out. We're going to do 1 point today, and I want you to really get this, is that you have to step with purpose, church. You have to step with purpose. Listen to what it says, going back to our scripture, 1 Corinthians 9:26. It says, so I run with purpose in every step. Not just shadow boxing. So I run with purpose in every step. What I'm trying to compel you to today is a deeper relationship with Jesus. See, if I gave you 10 points and 10 steps to living a disciplined life, I may empower you with some knowledge, maybe a little bit of wisdom, maybe a little bit of encouragement. But what I would like you to do today is get this one thing from me. And I believe this is what God is speaking. So I run with purpose in every step. And in order to understand that purpose, you're going to have to press in to God. You're going to have to press into him. You're going to have to find out what it is that is going to make every step that you take purposeful. What is it that you have to do to live that submitted life to say, you know what, God, I really, really want to do this. God, I really, really want to eat this. God, I really, really want to purchase this. But what is your best for me? And when you just begin to slow down just a little bit, before you make those really impulsive decisions, let the Holy Spirit speak to you, and you'll find that you start saving money. You'll find yourself taking care of your health. You'll find yourself not saying things that are destructive and blowing up your household. You're going to find yourself taking steps and achieving the things that God has for you. You know, I was thinking of just this little thought that maybe will help put this in perspective when it comes to steps and pursuing what you want most versus what you want now. Just imagine with me real quick. So you have this front yard that's just blown out, okay? I don't know that's probably not the best way to talk about it, but your grass is dead, okay? Everything's messed up. It's all jacked up, and everybody drives by, and you're going, man, that's the ugliest front yard I've ever seen. People leave notes on your door, your yard's ugly, fix it. So then you get motivated. You say, you know what, I'm gonna fix this yard. I'm gonna go from having the ugliest yard to the most beautiful yard in the entire neighborhood. So you prep the soil right, you put the seed down, you water it, and all of a sudden this beautiful yard starts to emerge. The grass grows and everything looks clean and everything's going good. But you have this mailbox that sits out on the side of the road. And so you come out of your front door and you're seeing that everything's going green, but in order to get to the mailbox, you've got to walk all the way down the sidewalk. You got to walk down the driveway, and you got to walk all the way over to the mailbox and open it, and then you got to walk all the way and go all the way back, and it's kind of inconvenient to do that. So one day you walk out and you decide, because maybe you're not going to step with purpose that day, because the purpose was the green yard, right? You decide, I'm just going to cut across the grass just this one time. Just one time. Mailbox right there, straight shot. Instead of going all the way around, just one time, I'm just going to do it one time. And you step across the grass one time, and it kind of didn't really mess it up that bad. So then the next day you walk out, well, I didn't really do anything yesterday, so I'll just do it today because I'm in a little bit of a hurry. And you step across the grass. At some point, you'll begin to carve a path in that grass because you started to choose what you wanted now instead of what you wanted most. See, when you started out, you wanted a pristine lawn that would make people envious in the neighborhood. That was the goal, to have something that you can be proud of, something that through your discipline and hard work you actually built, but through bad choices and taking now instead of most, you began to destroy that. Do you realize that many of us, we do that in life? We do that in life. And so what we do is we begin to change our perspective now. God, this is what I want most, so I'm going to be disciplined. The pain of discipline, I got to walk down the sidewalk. I got to walk down the driveway. I got to walk over here. I got to follow a different path now in order to actually achieve what I want most. And so I must run with purpose in every step. If I want a beautiful yard, I've got to take different steps. And so, how does this play out in our everyday life? It's just your choices. It's your choices, folks. I love to tell on myself at church. It's therapy. Recently, I've been doing a lot better with my health, and I was really tempted to stop at the donut shop because I like donuts, man. If you want to make Pastor fall, just show up with one of those boxes, man. It's hard to resist. And I literally got out of my truck and I had said, you know what, I'm just going to have one. So that was the first time across the grass, right? But that day, I remember I forced myself to go, no. And I walked all the way back from the front door and got back in my truck and left. Because I was going to step with purpose, because I'm going to live my life with what I want most, not what I want now. I hope that this is really practical. I hope this is helping you, because listen, guys, the choices that you're making, it's your way of honoring God. It's not showing contempt for the plan and purpose that he has for your life. It's not disrespecting and living in rebellion, willful rebellion against his plan for your life. It's by embracing that. And so what does this look like? For me, it was getting back in the truck and driving off. For some of you, you're committed to get out of debt right now, and you're going to be tempted to whip out that card and cut across the grass, so to speak. Because it's the shortest distance between what you don't have and what you want. And so you pull it out. But yet you made a commitment because what you wanted most was to be debt-free. But you keep cutting across the grass. You got to put the card away. You got to cut the card. You got to do whatever you have to in order to step with purpose. For some of you out there, you've made a commitment to God. And you say, God, I want to stop being trapped in pornography. I want to stop lusting and gawking at everything that walks past me. And so you make a covenant, but between your decisions on your day-to-day, in your day-to-day life, you're faced with these things. And so it's like, I want to look, nope, I've made a covenant before God and with my eyes and my wife, and so I'm gonna hold to that. Or you're gonna find yourself trying to find the quickest way across the grass to find that sense of satisfaction, to fulfill that lust. It's the decisions that you're making. And you know what, church? It's painful. It's painful to live a disciplined life. It's painful to pass up that meal. Have you ever started a diet? I don't know about you, but I would get angry. Did I get anybody that gets angry? Like I remember trying to quit drinking soda. I got double hands and feet up and all over this place. But I remember going to a restaurant and everything inside me was having a meltdown. I felt like a little 2-year-old toddler because I wanted a soda, man. I didn't want to order water. And it was even putting me in a bad mood. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you want to purchase things and you got your whole Amazon cart loaded, right? And it just kills you to hit delete or to turn it off. But and I know I'm speaking to you today. This is a really practical message. Some of you, you've gotten in habits of being flirtatious at work and doing certain things with certain people and thinking that you're not going to get burned. But listen, you're cutting across the grass. And at the end, when you said, man, my goal was to have a healthy marriage, you're eroding that thing because you're carving a pathway in between. And God is just challenging all of us today to think differently and to do differently. So let me just close with this one verse, bringing everything back to Hebrews. No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. Trained in this way. Trained to stay on the sidewalk and off the grass. Trained to stay on the driveway and off the grass. Are you guys seeing this? And so this is my encouragement to you this week. Get alone with God and say, God, what is it inside of me that I've been pursuing the now instead of what I want most? God, what is it that I'm pursuing right now that is not your best for me? And make a commitment to just start with just one thing. Just one thing. Some of you, as I read off some of the stuff on this list today, you're going, man, Pastor Steve, I got all of them. I'm in debt. I'm addicted. I'm, lustful. I'm prideful. I got all this stuff, man. I just feel overwhelmed. One thing. One thing, just get alone with him. God, what is it that you want to uproot? What is it that you want to get rid of? What is it that you want to get me on a path of purpose? And I promise you this, that he's going to speak to you. He's going to empower you. You're going to feel encouraged. And listen, you will succeed.